Okay, welcome everybody to tonight's Share Your Passion, which is going to feature our very own Ashara Shapiro, who does such cool things. I've been internet stalking you for a while, and the things you make are unbelievable. Ashara uses pre-industrial tools and makes repurposed different kinds of wearable artwork and other kinds of beautiful, interesting design. And she's going to tell us more about that. And from the looks of it, Ashara is in her studio, which is even cooler. And I am just so thrilled and excited that Ashara is sharing with us her amazing talents tonight. And of course, at the end, as always, we have Q&A. So if you have any questions for Ashara, please feel free to ask her. And with no further ado, thank you so much, Ashara.
Okay, I'm going to turn my fan off before I start because it's very loud. So give me one second. Sorry. And then I'm ready. It's hard for me to hear you if you have questions. So, okay. Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak with all of you and show you what I do. Share Your Passion is a pretty good title, I feel like, for this, for me. The best place for me to explain it was my studio. So you're only seeing like a tiny part of it, but this is basically where I spend a majority of the creating. I have, you know, other areas around here, vices and tools and things like that that I use, but we're gonna try to stick to this space as much as possible. So again, Ashara Shapiro is my name. I've been doing this for in my second year. Prior to this form of creative output, I was making lighting and furniture. Similar vibe, so also repurposed items, farm implements, industrial items, and sort of repurposing them into something that they were not originally, which you see a lot of, you know, nowadays, that same style. So anyway, so I did it for about 3 or 4 years. I did a lot of custom work. I had a couple brick and mortar spaces, but the custom work was really my favorite, the design meetings and whatnot. And then I started just collecting small bits and pieces off of those items that I was using, like tags, old brass tags, and rulers and things like that. And then I actually started making jewelry out of them, initially for myself, my daughter, some friends. And then it just kind of organically steamrolled. People were like, what's that? I want that. Did you make that? Make me one. So it just started getting bigger and bigger. So I have a selection of things that I can show you that I've already made. There's things mid-process that I want to show you just so you get a sense of what I start with and then what it becomes. I think this passion started, I've always collected old things, even as a kid. My grandmother collected old things. I think I got that from her a bit. But old vintage things I just love. If you've ever been to my house, you'll know I have all sorts of collections. So in collecting all of those things, there's a part of the respect of the history of the person who created the original item, its original purpose. A lot of these industrial items we don't use anymore because of technology. So they're sort of just scrapped and forgotten about. So what I like to do is collect them and turn them into something totally different that is modern, interesting, with respect for the origin. And then I like to tell the story. Who made it, what, you know, what the patent date was, what its original purpose was, what it looked like before, different ideas I've had to recreate it, and just sort of remind people, I guess, like where we came from, our history, which I think is very important. We're moving so quickly. I think it's nice to appreciate these things. And someone took a lot of time, especially back in those days, 1800s, early 1900s, to create something. It's not as easy as it is these days. So they really put their, you know, blood, sweat, and tears into it. So it's sort of an homage to that as well. So where to start? I'm going to show you what I first made, my very first piece, and tell me if I'm going to try to get as close and so you can kind of see. So I don't know if you can see this well, but this is actually a ruler. So it's very, very thick. I don't know if you can see the numbers well, but we don't measure like this anymore. So it says like 14,000, 15,000, right? And it's just solid brass. It has the maker's mark on here. It was actually made in Newark, New Jersey, believe it or not. I try to be, if I can find local things, I like that the most. So this was just a long ruler, like yay long that I found. And one day I just decided I'm gonna try to make it a bracelet. So it was a lot of heating and hammering and forging. I have a lot of old blacksmith tools, and there was some trial and error. It cracks if it's not hot enough. Every metal from this time is different. So that means there could be more copper in it. There could be, you know, some other mixed metal in it. So it doesn't bend as easily, or maybe it bends too, it's too soft, for example. So everything that I'm making out of all of these old things is a brand new experience. There's just no way to know. So I basically come to the table and I go, I'm going to try this, and I'm not going to be married to it because I don't know if it's going to work. But so far I've been fairly successful in my ideas. So this is the very first thing I made, and I wear this all the time, and everybody's always interested in it. And then I started making things with scales. So for example, this is, you probably have seen these, people still keep them in their kitchen sometimes. So this is a hanging scale. This one, they're called spring balance scales. Sometimes they would be for bags of grain, milk, all kinds of things. So you would measure, see that dial moving there? So you would put it on the hook and then you would have a weight. So nobody uses these anymore, obviously. But these are beautiful, intricate brass pieces. So most of the things that I do are brass. So I'll take something like this and I'll take the face off. So this is the back, you can kind of see it. Are you guys able to see? Okay, so I'll take this face off and I'll do something like this. I'll keep this part, for example, see the numbers? Let me just turn on this light. Is that better? Maybe you can see better. So I'll keep center numbers and I'll say to myself, what's interesting about that? Well, for example, this is a cuff that I made out of that. So if you can see, it's like a butterfly. Can you guys see that? So the butterfly piece that I made is part of the numbers on this piece here. So I cut these triangles and then I cleaned this up and then I soldered this onto another brass piece, leather backed it. So that's an example of a cuff I would make. Another example of using the scale, like I said, I love these scales, is I made this bow tie. See, it's like a bow tie choker. So this goes, like you wear it like this. So it's like a bow tie necklace. And the bow tie itself is actually made of those scale pieces. I don't know if you can see the numbers. I'm tiny on my screen. Oh, you know what? Let me, hold on. Wait. Maybe I can see. Anyway, it's fine. So that's another example of something that I can do. So really, it's really unlimited. It's just whatever I can come up with is really my limitations. And good thing for me, I'm not trained specifically. So I really don't have any limitations. Like I don't have any box. Nobody told me like, this is how you're supposed to do this. This is how you're supposed to do that. And what I find is it's really beneficial because I'll try anything. And, you know, and it really allows me to create and design something that I haven't seen, that is not pre-existing. I wasn't trained to do per se. And, you know, and I live by the motto, how hard can it be? So, you know, I've taught myself to weld, I've taught myself to solder, taught myself, I just got a new kiln, which I'm going to talk to you guys about. It's my only non-pre-industrial tool. But I've taught myself how to do that. So it's been a really cool journey, actually. So enough about the scales. But actually, before I say enough about the scales, I will say there's all kinds of different scales. So this is like a tiny little guy. He's also brass. And so like, I will take like, I don't know if you can see this, but here's numbers here. And I'll take like this piece of the brass and I'll make a cuff out of it. And I don't know if you can see the numbers there, but the font is so beautiful. Like I don't even know if we have that font even on our computers. They're just very ornate. And then there's all this writing on the top that I tend to steal and do fun things with, because it has patent dates on it. This is 1891. I mean, really amazing. So that's the scale bit. And then I find all kinds of different things. So this is another good example. So this is another cuff I've made. And this brass piece here, I actually salvaged out of a Knights of Templar warehouse where they created bits and pieces for their garb, right, in their ceremonies. So I found this, and this was actually part of this, which is actually like a crown piece that they used. So I was like, this is amazing. I love this. If you can see how ornate it is, I said I can do so many things with that. So far I've just made a simple cuff, but I mean, you know, I can do all kinds of different things. That's another example. I was going to make something with you guys, and please interrupt me and ask questions. You don't have to wait till the end. If there's something you want to ask me, it's a back and forth is more my bag anyway. So shout it out, ask me anything. I am happy to answer. So those are more complex things with solder pieces like that. I've also done stamping. So this is actually new brass. So for example, I go buy flat brass pieces, and I use this for like the back of my, like if I'm going to put something on a made brass piece, I'll use new brass, and then I'll embellish with whatever I want to embellish that's older. Or for example, I'll take the new stock brass, and I've been doing this a lot. You can't read this, but this actually, my daughter said to me one day, probably a year ago, she goes, "Mom, you're just not for everybody." I was like, that's absolutely brilliant. You're right. I'm not for everybody. You're talking about something I can't remember. But anyway, so as a memory to myself, to try not to be a pleaser, right? To just do you and whatever. I actually stamped that for myself in a piece of brass. So a lot of people that want custom things for other people, there's important quotes that mean something to who they're gifting it to. There's family things that are said. So this is a nice reminder that you can always wear of, you know, meaningful thoughts for yourself. So that is something that I get ordered a lot. The other cool thing that I don't actually have an example of, but I can explain it, is I started doing a secret message thing. So I had a friend who wanted something outside, which was like a good reminder for her sister, but on the inside, she wanted to say something specific that was more private. So I actually stamped, I burned in the leather on the inside the message. So now she has double messages. So that was a fun thing I tried. So before I get to the kiln bit, I just want to do a real kind of easy, quick. It's not that easy or quick, but it is now that I've been doing this for a while. But anyway, this right here, you can see, is a piece of a scale. So now this is a very old, early 1800s scale. This is only the second one I found, but the writing is beautiful. And there's this really beautiful ornate sort of edging going on. So I cut this off, and this is a little bit cleaned up just so you can read it, because when I find these, you can see the other scale, they're black, they're completely tarnished, you can barely see them. So sometimes I high polish, like that's super high polish, right? Some people like it to patina over time, because sometimes it gets like that really beautiful, like brownish, greenish patina, the brass. So I ask when I make it, do you want to have the patina, or would you like it to stay high shine? And then I can, you know, treat it as such. Like you can see, this one's patinaed, but I love that. This one has a high shine on the high shine the whole thing, so that pops. So it's thoughtful the way, you know, I do it. So there's reason for everything. I'm a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to things like this. So for this one, I would take a really fine steel wool. And it's a lot of elbow grease. So if I just do this and I get going here, I'm gonna just show you quickly. This will help me with words, for example, this steel wool. So now, see how the words really pop? Now they're polished. So now I know from trial and error, if I want that to be the main focus, I use my steel wool. If I want them to be completely high polished, I use my polish. I actually use car polish. It's the best polish, car metal polish. And it also creates a sealant. It's not a forever sealant, but it's a nice sealant that helps slow a patina. For a forever sealant, I would do like a lacquer finish over it. So then I can high polish this. So then what I would do for this, because this is basically, it's like a tag essentially. I mean, it's not a tag, but like I have a drawer of goodies. So for example, like these are old Ford tool tags. See that? They all have different numbers. So these are in their real state and not very pretty. But if I polish these, it gets as high shine as like this brass does. So it gets to be really lovely. So anyway, so this would be, this is a tag, for example, and I use those a lot with necklaces or whatnot. So what I'll do is I'll put it on leather. So primarily I do metal and leather. And I buy full hides of leather. And then I cut whatever I need from the full hide. So I also make bags. So which I'll show you in a bit. Trying to keep my own time. So anyway, so what I'll do is I'll have this how I want it, which is not now, but you get the idea. When you cut metal, obviously it's very sharp. So I have to use a grinding wheel, grind this whole edge, the corners, and I have all of these files, and I hand file. So talk about a labor of love, but I actually do that. So I hand file, I'll go this way, right? And then I have to make my rounded corners because you can't have anything sharp, of course, right? People are wearing it. So that takes the longest, really, is treating the edges and the metal. And then when I have it perfect, I'll place it on whatever leather. So I have brown here. I mean, I have my full hides over there, but you know, I have like this. I have all different kinds of offers to people, different colors, styles. So I'll place it on here, take my metal ruler, and you know, maybe the person wants it to be very, can you see me? Yeah. So maybe the person wants it to be very, very thin, so I'll just come above it. If they want it to be thicker, I'll move up, right, for example. And then I just simply cut my leather piece. Then after I cut my leather piece, I'll come to my swedge block. I don't know, yeah, you can see that still. So this is so heavy, but it's like my baby. This thing is amazing. So this is super, super old. So you can see there's patterns. So there's rounded areas, so I can hammer into metal and make a roundness. This is what I use the most, and this helps me form a cuff. So I can't have the metal straight on I can't have metal to metal because it will scratch. So I'll do something like in between. So we'll go back to like, for example, my new stock brass bar. Now this is 18 gauge. There's all different kinds of different gauged metals. 18 is my favorite. It's malleable, but it holds its shape. If you go to 16, it's a little thicker, opposite of what you've tried. So 16 is thicker. It's not as bendy. I have used it for other things, but for this cuff, so I just gently, I don't know if you guys can see me, but I'm just gently forming this. You don't want to push really hard because then you'll get like an angle. You won't get the smooth roundness. And if someone wants to yell at me if I'm getting close to time, because I'm not really paying too much attention, but keep me on target. So as you can see, I'm just kind of edging this very, very gently. You can see it turning. And then, you know, because I've been doing this for so long, well, you know, almost 2 years, but I've made a lot of these, I know when to stop curving my top edge, right? Then I'll go to my smaller I'll start about here, keeping this perfectly, this top of this perfect edge, and then I just start working these sides here. Right, so see, does that make sense? So now I have like a rainbow kind of thing. And then I just keep working, keep working, keep working. And then I'll get to my smallest on this edge over here. And which does this shape here, this round seam here. So it's a lot of trial and error, but if you go too fast, you'll get like a kink in the metal, and it's very, very hard to get out. And you might as well just not even bother, because you'll see it. You'll see it. It won't be smooth and pretty. So I would do the same to this. So for here, I know this is going to be in the center, so I'm focused on this main one here. So I'm going to kind of get it going. And I wouldn't only do this when it's complete. Normally, I would only do this when it's ready to be on the leather, because now, like, I'll have to flatten it and finish it. But it's okay, because I want to show you what I'm doing. So it's basically here, then we're here, and we're really pushing because we know this is the center. So basically, you're going to be here. I'm going to do a little bit of this edge here. And then see how it's starting to form around here? So basically, you want to look, you want to come back, you want to keep manipulating. So this is what I use to shape this metal, if it's malleable. If it's not malleable like this, then we're torching and getting crazy with the fire. I don't know if you see me back here? Not really. Well, this is an old blacksmith cone. I can roll it. Ridiculously heavy. This is solid cast iron. Can you see it better here? So this is a blacksmith cone. So this is what they used to use to make chain, for example, and any rounded needs for any kinds of metals. So I actually have marked, I can't see it, but I have an X here. I was working on a project and I had to use really thick gauge brass. So I had this, and I was like clamping, and I was firing, and I was hammering. So this is like a super awesome find that I salvaged that I've only known of one other one. So that's also precious for me for my tools. What else? So as far as the firing stuff, a new thing that I've been doing that's pretty fun is I do like to torch the metal, and I like to manipulate it now in smaller bits. So this, for example, was just flat new stock. And so I fired it and I started turning the edges. So I did a collection and I called it Pages. And to me, this reminded me of burning books, like burning pages, how they curl, the paper curls. So I did a collection with words and phrases, but the letters were all jumbled. So if you wanted a word, for example, but it was something private, something that meant something specific to you, then I would create this and I would put the letters in all different ways. And I would put this on, like on a cuff, like I'd solder it on a cuff like this, for example, or this is a smaller one. This was for a couple, they wanted it to just say us and they each wanted a cuff. So this was an example of something I was working on, but like I would solder it to something like that. Now this is super black because I had to burn it. It always comes out like this. It gets really, really black in order to turn it like that. But the cool thing about it being black is you're already creating a natural patina by burning it. So now when I take it back, I can really play with really shiny, shiny, shiny pieces. Like the edges, I can make super, super shiny. I can leave a deeper patina in the middle. So I can really be like artistic about bringing the metal back. Here's some other little fun bits and pieces of things. I mean, I have drawers. If you can see this drawer. This drawer, for example, is full of fun things that I can use at some point. Like these are fun. This is a lens scale. I don't know if you can see that. Looks like a little letter opener, but it has a magnifying glass end. So I found these, and they're really cool and ornate, and I've made cuffs out of these. I've heated them and twisted them, like almost like a snake. So that I've done. I'll try anything, really. These are cool. This was part of a salesman sample. So the American Brass Company was our biggest brass company in the United States. And they used to have their salesmen walk around with rings of these different, try to get the light right, these different examples. There's different textures. I've used a lot of these, so these are probably the least textured out of the ones that I had. But there's all these different amazing textures that they actually used to use in the 1800s. So it's so cool to see what was going on then. And I've used these to make simple things like cuffs like this with one across, or I've cut them in half, and I've done earrings, all kinds of things. So those are really neat. These, for example, I put on bags. These are just initials, but this is actually a salesman sample of a company who made cup holders for like gentlemen's like dens and bars and things. So they were metal cup holders, and these are their little salesman samples. And I found a whole case of them, and I was so excited. So people love these, and I can put them on bags, which I'll show you. So I take my full hide. We'll jump around. I take my full hide, and I don't know if you can you see the sewing machine? Not really. Yeah, good. All right, well, it's a Treadle sewing machine, also old, of course, from the 1800s, and it's a leather, it's a Singer, but it's a leather one. So it's like very, I used to make boots and shoes, primarily. It's not really bags, boots and shoes. So it's really strong, the needle's really, really intense. I have a Treadle, so that's what I use to make all my bags. So no electric, you know, or I turn the wheel. I think you can see that big, cool wheel. Oh, you can't now because I forgot I moved. Maybe now you can see the wheel. That big black wheel, yeah. So I can, if I can't do the Treadle, because, you know, sometimes the leather's too thick, then I can hand crank that wheel. So that's my machine that I use. So for example, like this is a bag that I'm working on, which you can see. And like when I used to do furniture, I loved a live edge on all my woodwork. It's like my favorite thing. So I've sort of adopted that into my leather work. So I always leave a live edge on my bags. So this bag, so this is like a little going out, whatever, during the day, don't need a lot bag. And I found this really cool old stencil. Happened to be my mom's initials. So exciting. I was like, yay! So this is actually for her, work in progress, but that's what would end up being, and then I would do a strap. So I would attach these with, I basically use all kinds of random hardware. So you can see, actually, maybe this is a better way to show you. So I use these kinds of connectors a lot. So it's a little screw. I use an actual nut that I fill out so they're because I don't need the threading. So that's spacers that I use, and I've been using that sort of across the board because it's kind of the vibe. It works. So I would attach that in the same fashion. This is another bag. I also have hair on hides that I use. This is a leather strap that goes across. So see the flap tucks in, opens up, and it's like a little clutch. And then you can tuck this back in the strap. You can carry it like this if you want, tuck in, whatever you want, or like this. And then this little brass piece is also one of the little salesman samples. I had a couple circles, and it's spades and aces from like a deck of cards. Pretty cool. And then I have a client who wants a huge bag for their computer. So I've got that. You can see the live edge again. This is a work in progress too. I'm going to do a handle. So that's my other thing besides jewelry. And then the last thing I want to talk to you about, I don't know, what time is it? How am I on? Oh, am I over time? No. Okay, okay. The last thing I wanted to discuss is my new kiln. So excited. So This is really cool. I was having a hard time because I'm finding all these cool things, and once I use them, they're gone. If I find another one, that's lucky. The scales are still, I can find, so that's great, but a lot of tags and things that I've used, once I use them, there's no way to, you know, I say bye, I loved you. You know, it was cool finding you, etc. So I was trying to figure out a way to keep some of these amazing things that I found. So there's two ways that I've been working on that. One way is casting. There's a foundry in the Amish. The Amish have a foundry a couple hours away, and really nice, family owns it. And sometimes I'll go there and cast things. For example, this little treasure I found, just like this. I don't know if you can see the details. So this wasn't there. I added this little bulb. It was actually, it had a screw in it. So my thought is it was some kind of light. It held some kind of light thing, right? I don't know for sure. I've never seen one. This is the only one I've ever found. So I soldered this little brass ball in to fill that hole. So it's completely filled. And I was like, what a cool purse handle. That would be amazing. So I had this cast because I loved this so much. And I knew once, and I already had people that were like, we want this purse. So I'm like, instead of saying bye to this, I had it cast. Oh, this is attached because this is the original one. That's the original one. This is a cast. Now this is a cleaned up cast. When they come back from the casting, they're a total mess. Like, I don't know if you can see that, how it's messy with the brass. This is a brass casting. This is actually a cuff that I made out of a key, and it was very, very labor intensive, and I decided to cast this as well. So now this is already days worth of, like full days worth of cleaning up, and it still has a long way to go. So casting is cool, but it's not necessarily efficient. But you know, with what I'm doing, efficiency is sort of not really a thing. But anyway, so now I can cast. I cast 7 of these. So now I can make, you know, use them for bags. So that was one of the solutions. And then I found out about metal clay, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. So metal clay comes in different grams. This is bronze. This is a bronze clay. There's a silver clay. I can do silver and gold and bronze. So now I've created a way for myself to work in silver and gold, which I'm really excited about. And for example, this is a silver. Silver's tricky because it's really, really like kind of goopy clay. So it's hard to hold any sort of form, but I'm going to show you this. So this is a stamp I found, and it's a Bucks County stamp. This is all of Bucks County, and they're broken up into districts. And I have yet to figure out if it's voting districts, school districts, what kind of districts. I've asked a couple of historians. I haven't gotten really a definite answer, but it's cool nonetheless. So I was like, what am I going to do with this? I don't know, but of course I saved it. So now with this metal clay, I thought, oh my God, awesome. I can stamp this map into this metal clay, and then I can fire it in my kiln, and I've created maps, metal maps. So I also love maps, so I have an affinity for that. So this was, I had a little bit of silver left. I sold all the rest, but this says, see how it says Bucks County? Can you see that? So this is at the very, very bottom of this stamp. It says Bucks County. So I had a little bit, and I was like, I'll just try it. So this is what the silver clay comes out like. It's solid silver. It's really cool. So that was my first time trying that. But I've been primarily using this bronze clay. So it looks like this. It's kind of soft. It's really, you have to be really, it's finicky. The air dries it. If it even dries just a little bit, it gets very hard and cracky. So I'm still learning a lot about it. And you have to treat your fingers because it's such fine dust. So basically it's metal, the finest metal sand, essentially, and it has a bonding agent. So when you create something and you put it in the kiln, the bonding agent burns off and the metal becomes hard metal. For example, I'll show you, I did these earrings out of that same mat we're talking about. And I'm trying to get the light. You see those? So they came out really cool. I don't know if you can see the detail. Let me get closer. So that's Newtown. It's pretty neat. So when you have them on, you know, this is kind of what you're looking at. So that is an example of, this is another example. I just made this ring. This is my first ring. This is my logo, the anvil and hammer. You can see better. Let me see that. So I purposefully left some of the edging. See how it's shiny as I throw it? It's shiny around the top, and then it looks still kind of rough around. And I really loved that. So I left that. But I do a lot of big stuff. So when you wear it, it's like a big, I love cigar rings. I don't know if you guys know what those are, but they're the really big, thick, tall rings. They were big in the Victorian era. So anyway, so I made, that's my version of a cigar ring. Another example that's fun is that I made this, I called it the crowd. So it's a bunch of people. Let me get a good angle. It's a bunch of people, see, standing together. Due to this whole quarantine thing, I had a groups, how we're not able to be in groups. That was been on my mind. So this I called the crowd, and this I made out of the metal clay. And then can stamp the back. I try to stamp all my work. So it's my maker's mark. So that I made. I'm going to do a brooch. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I think I'm going to do a brooch with it. So it'll be really neat. What else can I tell you? Is there time for questions? About? Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, Ruth here.
Yes.
In particular, with some of the older, more antique metals that you use, is there ever any concern about something in the composition, where there's a safety issues, toxicity, anything like that in the metal itself you might be worried about?
Yeah, so they didn't usually mix anything with lead. It was usually more or less copper. And when you look at old metals and old brass specifically, you can see if it has, like, this is a good example. Well, this is copper, but this is, let me see, where's mine? So see how, let me see. This looks almost coppery. And this looks really, wow, I'm looking up close. You guys can barely see anything. I feel so bad. So this is more yellow, and this looks more copper. So that's an example of when the makeup has more copper than more bronze, for example, or brass, because bronze sometimes has a reddish hue too. So that's usually the balance. You can always test for lead in things, but it hasn't been a concern. Nobody's asked me. The only customers that have asked me is when I've done earrings about.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and I use all new, hypoallergenic. I don't repurpose, of course, for that. It goes in your ear.
Right.
But I haven't had any issues with that. No.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. Anybody else?
So you may have said this in the beginning, but actually, where are you? Where is your studio? Where are you working?
Good question. So I'm in Rushland. And if you're not familiar with that, you wouldn't be the only one. It's absolutely tiny. So it is along Swamp Road, and it's basically between Newtown and Doylestown. So when you go on Swamp Road and you go by the old train station where Davis Feed Mill is, if you're familiar, there's like the original old post office. I'm in that area. So I'm actually in the building where the original Ford dealership was in Bucks County. There's still a part upstairs in the barn that has, it says it's all hand painted for it. It's pretty cool. I tried to buy it, but they won't sell it to me. Pretty neat. But yeah, so, it takes me 15 minutes to get to my shop. not far. So I have had design meetings out of the shop. You know, pre-quarantine, I had some things in a Lambertville store, so most people were going there. I was there one day a week, and I would meet people there as well. I also just did a collection for Mercer Museum, as well as lectures there and demos there. They have my collection in the gift shop, and it was done as a response to Fonthill. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Henry Mercer, but there's a lot of Latin phrases that go through Fonthill. So that was basically an artist's response to that. It was very exciting to make that collection and, you know, do the lecture there. And I had scheduled during the quarantine, unfortunately, I had scheduled a whole weekend of being there and talking and showing and selling. And so that's been postponed. So hopefully we'll get that back on the calendar, but yeah.
Very nice.
Thanks. Yeah, and then when people want something custom, I usually, you know, I'll meet them and talk to them about, you know, what it is they're thinking about, what it is they love to do, hobbies, for example, and then I'll sketch what I'm thinking. Usually I can come up with something while I'm in the meeting on the spot, at least just some sort of roundabout concept. And then, you know, I pitch that. So this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? Yada, yada. We talk about it. And then when I have a definitive sketch, I, you know, send it to the client and say, you know, yay, nay, make some adjustments. So far, nobody's named me, so that's good. But that's really my most favorite part, is talking to the people and seeing what it is that I could create for them that will, you know, be a reminder of something they love, someone they love, something they love to do, how they identify themselves in the world. All of those things are part of these creations. And weirdly enough, when I've had shows, people have come in and pick something up, and they're like, oh my God, this is my family's from here, or this old, you know, machine tag is my uncle works there, or whatever it is. There's all kinds of interesting connections that happen with clients that come to shows, and it's so cool to see that happen, and for them to share with me, you know, what the connection is. And I mean, I still have people that I've known for years, even that bought furniture and lighting from me, that are now buying jewelry. So I've made some really nice connections. So I definitely enjoy that. And I think that because the nature of this is so sort of abstract, it has a lot to do with the individual person and how it speaks to them. So I think that naturally allows me to kind of enter, you know, that relationship on a different level. We're already like under the surface with what we're doing, which is really rewarding.
I have a question again.
Yes,
about thinking back to the purses, you know, that you showed us earlier, your leather work. Do you only work with new leather?
No, actually, I have worked with old leather, and I brought old leather.
I'm thinking recycling.
Life.
You know, recycling.
Yes. I have brought old leather back to life. It's hard. It's hard to do that.
Why is that?
I'll tell you why. Because the weathering of leather, it depends. So now, when I'm repurposing, a lot of the leather that comes maybe with whatever that I'm taking that's repurposing has been outside. So we're talking like leather strappings, you know, it's more like leather strap that I can repurpose, not like a hide, because people have cut it up and used it for whatever, but like a thicker strap because I also have made belts, right? So I tried to use strap leather, like horse bridle leather, all kinds of different strap leather, and sometimes I've been successful, but most of the time it's a retired item, so they're not using it anymore. The leather's so cracked that I can't like sell it to someone else like a new, you know, like I'm like, I don't know how long this is gonna last. It's too cracked. So I have been able to bring certain parts of leather back, and I can show you. Excuse the noise. So for example, this came off of a bridle. okay? So this is leather. It has brass rivets, I guess you could say, on it, and this is off of a bridle. So
Wow.
cool. So
Yeah.
cool. So I'm like, I'm going to use this on a bag. Now, it's not going to be the whole bag, but I can use it as the closing flap, for example, on a bigger bag. I'll take this hook off. I'll take this hardware off. This ring is a celluloid ring, which is really cool. You don't even use that anymore. So I would definitely keep that. I might go this way, for example, and let that hang. So now this is a piece I could totally reuse. I haven't tried to bring this back, but I would use mink oil for that. The other thing about oiling leather is you just have to be careful, because sometimes if it's a high use product, then the oil, like if you're dressed up and you have some mink oil, it does absorb, but it's something to think about as someone who's making something for someone else. Right. So what I would say is this would have to be on the outside and not touching, Right. So there's all those things to consider. But I definitely, like I said, I really try to use, I've used all kinds of old hardware. I really try to use as much as I can of old, of repurpose, for sure.
Okay.
So I have a question. When you're designing, is it all in your head? Do you use paper? Do you sketch it out? Do you use models? What is that process like for you?
I would say that it's not one thing. Like in my design meetings, for example, I like to sketch things just because I think it helps my client have a sense of what's in my head. I've got like 10 conversations in my head going on even right now as we speak. My mind is just always moving and thinking of ideas. So for me, I'll take, like, if I'm going to use this piece, I'll just kind of, look at it and take it in and say, what could it be? I always start there. What could it be? What do you want to be? You're not what you used to be. So what can we make? And I'll just kind of think, and there's a bit of a back and forth, not to sound, kind of strange, but, when you're using old things and old metals, it's not going to bend to your will. Some metal isn't malleable, and you don't know that until you start working with it. So sometimes I'm like, okay, my initial idea isn't going to work. So let's regroup and let me think, about how I can do, based on what I'm now discovering about this material, what can I do differently to make it work? So I have to be really open to change all the time. I can't have, I definitely am quick to have a final product in my head. Like I'm like, oh, love it. This is what I'm going to do. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. And when it doesn't, I just have to, move with it and be fine with it. And, sometimes if I have an idea, maybe that doesn't work for that idea, but I'll keep that idea. And I have like a million journals floating around my shop, my house, and I'm like constantly, writing down something that I want to try. Or I take inspiration from a lot of different things. I love nature. Nature is my solace. So I take a lot of inspiration from nature, from patterns in nature, feelings about nature. Obviously, history, you can see I'm inspired by that. And also about society. Society inspires me. Current society, where we're at as individuals, where we're at collectively. What do we want to talk about? I'm a big, I try to use empowerment as much as possible in my work, even if it's subtle. So that's really important to me. So how can I empower, even if it's not, nailed into what I'm doing, but how can I empower my client? How can I have this conversation with this person who is telling me, this is what I love? Well, how can I make something that when they wear it, they're going to feel stronger? That's always on my mind. So that's like a big, big part of what I'm doing, what I want to do, what my mission and goal is.
This is so cool. Thank you so much, Ashara. I am in total awe of what you're doing. My question is, you mentioned that you taught yourself to weld and to solder. You were officially my hero, but I'm curious to learn how you did that. Like, how does one go about, that seems like a really involved process.
So Basically, I've been pretty lucky that there's always someone that I can find that is willing to show me. So, for example, I wanted to start making bags, and I wanted to start doing, that with leather work. And a girlfriend of mine was at a show that I was doing, and she was like, "Oh, my best friend, her dad, he's like, 89. He still has his original shoe store. He has all these old tools. You would love him because he used all these old tools. You should meet him. We're going to set it up." So I'm like, okay. So I'm looking for a sewing machine at this point because I want to make bags, but I want something like the 1800s, old, cool, kind of thing. So she's like, "Yeah, I think he has one of those. Like, we should check it out." So of course I go, and his nickname is Benny the Shoe. He's like 4'5", one of my favorite people I've ever met. Incredible. Like, he took me in, he was like, "Who's this girl think she is, coming in here asking me if this is a sewing machine?" And then in like 15 minutes, we were like best friends. I'm at a sewing machine. He's showing me how to do it. He's like, "I think I have one. Maybe, I don't know." He's like, "I might need a part." He's like, "I don't know. I gotta think about it. I might have one. I might not have one." He like did a lot of this, I'm like, "You're amazing. Great. Well, think about it, whatever." So I spent like an hour and a half with him, just talking and like finding out all about him, and he showed me how to work this whole amazing sewing machine. So, and I didn't think he was going to give me his only other sewing machine, and this is his livelihood, right? And he called me like, I want to say like 4 days later, and he was like, "Ashara, I'm going to give you my sewing machine. I want you to have it. I like you." And I was like, "Oh, I love you. Thank you." So it was really cool. So like those things I've been lucky enough that those things have been happening. So, now Benny and I are close. If I have a problem, I call him, or if he has something he wants to tell me, or something that he thinks I need, he'll call me. So now I have a relationship with him. I've had relationships with like pickers who, I've met at random different times in my life that will call me, and they're like, "Oh, I found this. You'll love it. Do you want it?" I'm in like Wyoming or wherever, and they'll bring it back, or send it to me. So I have like quite a group of that I developed from the furniture, really, because we were doing the same thing for the furniture and lighting. And then the welding and the soldering, I share my space with a pretty long time friend. We've known each other for like 10 years. He actually was my partner in the furniture and lighting business. So we were together, but now he's actually working at Mercer. I'm doing my own thing, but we still share the space. So he knows how to do all of those things. We have a neighbor who works on cars, who knows TIG welding and MIG welding, and I can pop over there and he can give me a lesson. So I'm like the only, woman in this enclave of there's a machine shop, there's like an automobile guy, there's like a powder coater, and then there's me. So I've got like all of these extensions of experiences that I can learn. And there's always someone I'm finding willing, like, to teach you, that's the old, I feel like that's the old way. Like, we don't have apprenticeships anymore. There's no real opportunity. I mean, there is, but you really have to seek it out. So, I kind of just seek it out. I'm like, I want to learn this. And, even if it's a 45-minute lesson, I mean, I've sat there for days with this sewing machine, just like, okay, fine. It's a bad day. I'm going to come back tomorrow and we're going to work it out, because it's so old, it's temperamental, right? Like, if it's too, it's like almost like a garage band here. If it's too hot, too cold, likes it doesn't, it has a personality, like all these old tools. So you just kind of have to just take the day as the day, and then hope that, if you want to learn something, someone along the way will show up to help you. And that's lucky enough that's happened. So.
I have a question.
People like to share their knowledge, like, especially with things like that. Like, I find, older people that have been doing things for a very long time, like, they're like, "Oh my God, someone actually wants to know how to use this from so long ago." And then they get to share their, their experience and what they've learned in years and years. And there's a beauty of passing that down. So I like to tap into that, for multiple reasons. Of course, it's helpful to learn, but it's also about the experience. Now, every time I sit there, I think of Benny. That's an invaluable you know, I told him, he gave me this, I'm like, you blessed my machine, so everything's gonna be great from here. Like, because he's like, I made it perfect for you, and I picked it up. He was so excited. Like, that's, I mean, you can't go to a store and buy that. So it's all part of the, you know,
Wow.
experience. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes. Hi! I didn't know you were here. I can only see 4 people. That's my son. Yes, honey.
Do you still use the color clay stuff that you make in the kiln?
Yes, I was talking about that. My metal clay. I was showing them.
The colored though?
It's not colored. Well, it's bronze, so it's bronze color. It's not color. I have bronze and then silver, and then I haven't used gold yet, but I'm going to. I'm going to try it.
He really wanted to hear what his voice sounded like on Zoom.
Awesome. That's fun. So anybody else have any other questions for me?
So how much time do you spend in your studio in a typical week?
Well, that's a great question. I used to spend a lot more time. When the kids were at school, I was here, basically. So, you know, get them to school, go to the shop, get back, you know, when they would get home. But now, as we all know, it's a lot tougher. With virtual school, I was home with the kids towards the end of that, and now we'll see. I'm probably going to be home with them. So, you know, my husband and I are both working from home. My kids have been really, and as well as my husband, have been really supportive and been able to help when they can. It's only 15 minutes, so I can always rush. I can bring things home and work on them as well. The only issue is if I have the kiln on, then I can't leave it, you know, because so I have to fire that metal clay at 1540 degrees. So this kiln goes up to 2800. So I can also do glass work, which is on my list. Haven't done that yet, but I'm going to be doing some glass. So that I have to obviously stay here for, wait till it cools. So that's a little bit tougher. So that is more scheduled. I need really a whole day. But other than that, I can be popping in and out. I mean, I always want to be making, so as much as possible. But, you know, I'm lucky to be able to, you know, have the opportunity to come when it works, you know, in the family for now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Anyone else want to ask Ashara anything? It's an incredible presentation. I am just floored. This is amazing.
Thank you. It's fun. I mean, this is why I love doing the demos. Like, you know, a lot of my art shows are not happening over the summer. Like, I always do Dress on Arts Fest and a whole bunch of different art fests. And my favorite part is just talking to people. I'm always making, because I'm like, I have to be busy. So I'm always making while I'm at these festivals. But, and like I do custom sizing there and stuff like that. But just the talking to people and seeing their reactions and sharing and, you know, having them ask me questions, that's my absolute favorite part. You know?
And you have a website, I assume.
I have a website. I have an Instagram page. I have a Facebook page. I have all of that. Right now I'm on the Arts and Cultural Council of Bucks County. They're doing a live gallery show. They've chosen a couple of my pieces for that. One of them is at Mercer right now, so I'm going to do another live chat. It will be quicker. It's like a 15-minute one, but I'm doing it live from Mercer actually, which is fun. Talking about that collection, so I'll have that on my social media when that's done and scheduled. So yeah, I can put, I don't know, rather ways. I mean, I can put the information somewhere if you want, or I can tell you what my website is. But I can show you, maybe it's easier. I don't know if you can see it.
If you email,
basically just.
if you email,
it's that kind of backwards.
Cool. If you email it to us, then I'll post it on the YouTube video of this presentation so everyone can see it when they,
Yeah, so the name is, it's a recherche. So recherche is French for esoteric, you know, and that's sort of my vibe. It's like everything's new and different. unexpected. A is my first initial, so it's just a .com. So it's just ARECHDRCHE. So, but we'll post it, and then we'll do all the social stuff. So yeah, so if you guys can follow me, I'll keep you posted on new things. My Instagram page is always really current with new things that I've made. I'm always posting pictures of them. Yeah, and feel free to reach out to me with any other questions, needs, whatever.
That is so cool. Thank you so much, Ashara. That was an incredible presentation. I'm really excited to look at your postings and follow you for sure. And want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. And just a reminder that if you know of anybody who does cool things in our community like Ashara, let us know. Or if you have something you want to present, we always are looking for folks. So also just a quick shout out that tomorrow night we have a discussion of the 2016 film 13th by Ava DuVernay. It's an incredible look at the prison system in the United States and the implications for racial justice. So please check that out tomorrow night after Minyan. It'll be around 7:45 and facilitated by our very own Carol Benderson-Leiter, who is here with us tonight. Hello, Carol. And just again, thank you all so much for coming out. Want to wish everyone a wonderful evening. And again, thank Ashara for a fabulous presentation. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, and stay well and be well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It was wonderful.
Thank you.